was a teenager growing up in London, I was obsessed with this Black British TV sketch show called Little Miss Jocelyn. It was written and played by Jocelyn G. Essien. In it, she famously played Mrs. Umokmokmokmo, who was constantly at marriage counseling with her multiple husbands. Or Ignatius, the driver, whose driving lessons would have made last man very, very happy. I can go on and on about her multiple characters. She was a big part of my childhood. And I am still a fan. Imagine one day my father comes into our flat and he's like casually saying that there's a film crew outside our house. I casually run down the stairs, sit wedged by the door, just looking to see what was being filmed. Maybe I'll be an accidental extra, who knows? And then I see her, little Miss Jocelyn, wearing an apron with chicken bits stuck to it. She was my first Black British brave television star, and she was right across the street from me, just shooting. Little Miss Jocelyn was very inspiring and very relatable because, unlike most Black British shows, her show was fun, clever, creative. She didn't emphasize on gang violence or drugs within the Black community. So I was inspired to maybe chase a career in acting or maybe in the entertainment industry so that I too can shed light on fun, rich stories within the Black community. Hello, I'm a Nigerian-British actor. You may have seen me on shows like Blood Sisters, Far From Home, or films like Breath of Life. If you are a cinema... Thank you. If you are a cinema lover, you may have seen me in record-breaking A Tribe Called Judah. Or if you're a rumor monger, you may have seen me in, or you may know me as Viola Davis's long-lost daughter. I am originally from Anambra State, but I was born in Enugu State, where we lived till I moved to London when I was 11. I was such a huge fan of the greats like Patience Ozokwo, Mercy Johnson, Onyeka Onwenu, Aki and Popo Nkemowo, even the late greats like Mr. Ibu, Sam Loko, and the Queen, Genoveva Umeh. While away, I really missed these actors and their stories. One thing I really appreciate my parents for was for maintaining the culture, even though we were thousands of miles away. I mean, we were still very much a part of the Nigerian community, from church to the quarterly village meetings to the rice after church on Sundays. Or the Chalukaina Luno, which meant, look, wait till we get home. Today you meet your maker. And we'd always get this at like parents' evenings at school. So I had as full a Nigerian experience as one would have growing up outside of Nigeria. As such, I never felt like I lost my identity. Instead, I craved it even more. When in high school, we had this drama class that only lasted for 2 hours. Trust me, these 2 hours were my favorite 2 hours of the week. We would perform plays, reenact scenes, use our imaginations to do improv. I mean, it was all going great. I quickly figured that I really loved acting, and then one of my peers was like, hey, you should try to get into drama school, a part-time drama school. I'm like, okay, I apply, maybe because I wanted to do it for myself, and maybe because I thought that I could play little Miss Jocelyn's characters. This would be the first time that I take ownership of my career, and it felt really good. Days pass, weeks pass, and I get the letter, an acceptance letter. They actually let me in. And I'm here wondering what's going to happen, because of course, while I did like bicycle, because there's a £400 entry fee. How was I going to afford that? I couldn't ask my parents for it. Again, I take ownership of my situation, and I get myself a part-time job at a big retailer called Primark, where I earn enough to fund my fees. Drama school was an experience. A big highlight for me was getting to act alongside 2 other girls on a play about women's power, or getting the opportunity to audition outside of school, which was such a big deal back in the day. And then the head of school looked at me and was like, hey, you have a face for TV. You know, these acts and words of encouragement really made me feel like anything I put my mind to, if I took charge and bet on myself, it was always a good decision. After high school and A-levels, things start to get real. I decide to take a course in law. Here, my high school teacher is like completely shocked because, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? I decide to take law, and she's shocked because she really thought that I was really good at drama. But this was the reality of an immigrant, because stability meant choosing a profession versus choosing drama in university. I mean, the uncertainty. However, I get cold feet, and I defer my entry to law. That year, it was my gap year. I decided that I'm going to be an 18-plus researcher, advising other young people about their futures. Imagine me, a dropout, advising other young people about their futures. I must have been acting because I could pass for a clown. After that, I eventually get into university. But trust me, I do everything except for law. I was the events coordinator at my university. Everybody knew me, I knew them. I did all the extracurricular activity except for actually my law courses. Yeah, I failed my first year. And then I'm worried because now I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Was I going to change my course? Was I going to drop out of university? One thing was clear. I didn't have as much joy doing law as I did doing drama. Again, I take ownership of the situation. In that retake year, I decided I'm going to look at opportunities in Nollywood. I mean, I was watching a lot of Nigerian content in my single bed at uni anyway. I sent in a self-tape for a show, and then I'm getting an audition for a physical read at the producers. And then by the time I knew it, the next month I was on a flight to Enugu to shoot a series in Nigeria. This would be the first time that I'm working with Nigerians in Nigeria, and I loved it. I mean, I was living my little Miss Jocelyn moment in my father's land. I loved everything from showing up to getting dressed in the mornings, no matter how early, actually doing rehearsals, actually doing the show, eating up by whenever I liked. And turning 21 in the forest wasn't that bad. I finished the shoot. I come back to my university feeling very energized, feeling like I had an idea of what I wanted to do. You know, the fire in me as a kid hadn't died, and trust me, no form of adulting was going to quench it. I decide, I'm going to finish my law degree to prove that I'm above the law, but I'm also not going to give up on my acting. That year, I get a non-speaking part in an indie film to be shot in London, and I'm thinking, things are gonna take off. Things are gonna go as fast for me as it did when I was in Enugu, but nothing happened. After speaking to a couple of people, and after a couple of months of just buckling down at my part-time job, I decided that the money I made was enough and that I can go to Nigeria. But there was a major hurdle, convincing my parents. Ego dinogu, fortune benefits the brave. How was I going to convince my parents that I wanted to go from London, United Kingdom, to Orile, Lagos, Nigeria? For those of you who don't know Orile is not the fanciest place in Lagos, but it was what was available to me. So yes, I decided to find my little Miss Jocelyn moment in Orile. I tried for days, weeks, months, years to break the Nollywood industry, but nothing. I was barely scratching the surface. I do make enough to move into my box apartment, which was no bigger than this stage. And then the year we all swore to never speak about, 2020, happens. I'm locked in, panicking on how I was going to pay my rent, breaking out in acne, gaining weight. And then I actually learned that rats are not that bad. And that actually I could, travel at 3 a.m. for auditions. Each time I asked my dad for money, he would say to me, this thing is not working out, be coming back. Then that year, I get the opportunity to audition for Far From Home. If my audition could talk, it would have said, please, hire me, I need to pay my rent. I was deeply insecure and sabotaging myself. I have a conversation over the phone and I hear that most of my friends had gotten the job and I hadn't. I was disappointed. It felt as though I'd missed my big break. And the only reason I actually came back home. I cried for days, often waking up in the middle of the night with a lump in my throat. After missing out on Far From Home, I'm like, I'm not going to be idle. I get myself a job as a PA on a production set. And you wouldn't believe it. We were lodged in the same hotel as the cast of Far From Home. Like, who wants to be reminded of their failure? Not me, Lord. On one hand, I really wish I got the role. On another hand, I was really happy for my friends. As we would play games, watch shows, I thought to myself, I'm not going to give up. I mean, by God's grace, success was in the neighborhood. After a month, I decided to apply to join the first intake of acting for screen at one of the newest film school in the country. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to do this. Speaking to one of my mentors, she innocently says to me, taking this decision would mean taking a step back in my career. While another echoed my thoughts that if anything amazing was going to happen, it would happen with this first set of students. I decided to go in. My goal and my intention was to just be amazing. I wanted to be seen, but most importantly, I wanted to be better at showing up for work. So I say yes to all the opportunities during training, and I apply myself, getting into opportunities, even though it was minor roles with peer work. And then the head of school saw my work and said, hey, you should audition for a role called Timaine in Blood Sisters. I audition, and I wait, and wait, anxiously wait. And then I get the call. I booked the role. This was my biggest role yet, and eventually the series that changed my life. Now, remember I said that I'd lost out on the Far From Home opportunity? Well, apparently they hadn't shot yet. And I get a call to come and audition for the same character. Again, the PTSD. Maybe it was the training I was uncertain of going, or the fact that I'd shot Blood Sisters, or maybe the idea that I really wanted to have my little Miss Jocelyn moment. But I auditioned, and this time, if my audition could speak, it would have said, please hire me. I think I have all it takes to portray this character. I mean, I would have said kill this character, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that here, am I? No? Okay, anyway, I got the job. And then what followed was my first ever AMVCA nomination for a film I shot in 2020. I mean, yeah, it was all happening. Remember the indie film that I told you that I'd got cast for in London? Well, they reached out to me 4 years later, saying that they had found funding and they were ready to shoot. Imagine all of the beautiful moments I would have missed out on if I just focused on this film and not taken ownership of my career and life. I dread to think of all the little Miss Jocelyn moments I would have missed out on here in Nigeria if I just held on to the promise of this film. For me, I just wanted to act. Now, I was acting, but it was more than acting. I blew. But trust me, I didn't account for this part in my journey. So it made me feel like I needed to hide, like I couldn't exert my voice. With more following on Instagram, the more my anxiety grew. And I didn't know how to be myself. I'd panic on every little decision, and I really cared way too much about the opinions of others. This was not until I heard Mrs. Michelle Obama say that in order to be authentic, people will gravitate towards you when you bring the best and the worst version of yourself because you're human. I then decided that nothing about me had to change, not really. Sometimes I wonder if I've actually found my little Miss Jocelyn moment. Sometimes I wonder when I'm on set if there's a little dreamer just sat wedged in front of their door looking at their own little Miss Jocelyn, wondering if they will ever get on a big or small screen. If there is, my little advice would be to take advantage of your moments. No matter how hard it gets, be patient, and trust me, your failures might surprise you. Thank you.